A documentary production of Higher Ground, former President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama's production company, as well as Netflix and Participant Media, is shining a light on what happened when a Chinese company opened a factory where a GM plant once operated in Dayton, Ohio.
American Factory received accolades at the Sundance Film Festival. It was also featured at the AFI Docs Festival in Washington, D.C. Joining us to discuss the film and its significance are directors Steven Bognar and Julia Reichert. Great to see you guys.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Yeah.
You got some heavy hitters playing here, you two being among them, certainly.
We're just local filmmakers.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Dayton,
Working
Ohio.
with the former President of the United States.
What's the story that you wanted to tell here?
In our hometown, Dayton, Ohio, there was a big General Motors plant that actually built the middle class of Dayton, as factories often do. You know, the blue-collar middle class.
Yeah.
But you know, people could send their kids to college, there was security, you could own a home. It built that kind of middle class of our town. So that plant closed in '08 as the economy was collapsing around us.
Yeah.
We didn't know that was going to happen. We made a film about that called The Last Truck. So fast forward about 8 years, and that plant stood empty. You know, raccoons living in it, rusting, very sad blight on our community. And a Chinese billionaire entrepreneur bought the plant and brought over 300 or more Chinese supervisors, workers, and hired 2,000 American blue-collar workers. And all I will say is complications ensue.
Such as?
Yeah. Lay it out for us, Steven.
You know, in the early days,
Yeah.
everyone was so excited because jobs were coming back to Dayton,
Yeah.
and we needed jobs in a big way. But and there was so much sort of cultural curiosity about you know, the Chinese were having barbecues at the American folks' houses, or some of the Chinese engineers and managers were cooking traditional Chinese meals for these blue-collar coworkers of theirs. It was great, but it was the communication challenges and then the expectations of the Chinese company were not lining up with what could be delivered by Americans who had never worked in this industry before. This is a company that makes windshields, glass windshields for any kind of automobile. So profit was not being made, and when the expectations weren't being met about when we would be profitable in this factory, pressure started coming down on everyone, and then things started getting tense, as you'll see in the film. And it's a tough job. I mean, making glass requires furnaces that are like at 2,000 degrees. So people are working in environments that are super hot, and yet they're wearing heavy-duty protective sweaters, right, in 200 degrees.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a tough environment in which to work. And we were very fortunate. The founder of the company, whose name is Chao DeWang, invited us in from the beginning and gave us complete access, and we followed the story for 3 years, from this really exciting beginning to much more challenging times that come.
And what's the active status of the plant now?
They're still producing glass.
going.
In fact, you'll probably see their Fuyao stickers on your windshields pretty soon.
The company's called Fuyao.
Yeah.
Fuyao Glass America. It's the biggest glass-making plant in the world in our town, Dayton, Ohio. They have 2,200 workers who are American and about 200 to 300 who are Chinese now. It's a little bit settled down.
Well, how do these Dayton, Ohioans feel working for a Chinese company? I have a lot of problems with that. Yeah.
Well, you know, there's a huge cultural difference in work life between China and America.
Yes.
And let's not forget, the Chinese folks who came over left their town, got on an airplane in a medium-sized town in China, and flew to Dayton, Ohio. They had never been anywhere before. So they bring, of course, like we would, their cultural expectations of work life. We learned that we went to China, and we spent the whole 2 weeks in factories, in the glass factories. Those workers worked a 12-hour day, a 6-day week. That's the expectation.
That's the standard.
Yeah.
Standard. And if they get 2 days off a month, maybe 3, and if they need to work more, they will. That's just the way it is over there. And if their supervisor says, do this, the Chinese expectation is you do it. You don't
Yes.
ask any questions. That is not how Americans work.
No, it's
Well,
not.
and part
That is
of
not how Americans work. We want the 8-hour day. We
Well,
want our
and
weekends
Americans
off.
always
Yeah.
want
And
to
we
say
have worker
why.
protections. Yeah.
Well, we have that, but Americans want to know, like, why do you want me to do that?
Right.
What's the rationale? What's the bigger
they don't
picture?
just say
Better
yes.
idea.
And,
Yeah.
and we want, we try to make the film so that you are both in the shoes of the Chinese and the shoes of the Americans, that you're not watching it from a Midwestern American lens, which, we're Midwestern Americans, but we realize it's like cultural differences should be viewed both directions, right? So you have empathy for the frustrations of the Chinese as well as the Americans.
To
So-
me, go ahead.
Well, I was
Kristen.
just going to say, one of the things that really built the middle class in that region, which is an area that I lived in as well, and was actually very, very formative for me politically, looking around that area and seeing town after town that was basically devastated by industrial decline, really leaves a
Absolutely.
mark on your psyche. But one of the things that built the middle class there was unions. And the GM jobs that they had lost
were
were
all union.
union jobs, and these are non-union jobs. What was the comparison there?
Well, that's a whole really interesting part of the film, and what was actually part of that was very new to us. And I come from a working class background. My dad was a union man, so I grew up very comfortable with the security that unions provide. That's a non-union plant. It comes up right in the beginning of the film. They want to be non-union. Many of the workers who started there were GM workers, and they were used to the better salary, the safety committees that were run by workers. The power, the voice, the authority that a union provides. Okay, it's non-union. So what starts to happen, and you'll see it in the film, is that they hire these union avoidance consultants in numbers, and they're all over the plant, and there are mandatory meetings, and there are signs all over the place. Vote no. Vote no.
And meanwhile, a union campaign begins.
Yeah.
The
Right.
workers start to try to organize a union.
Yeah,
course.
there was a vote. Yeah, of course. The UAW was the union that really tried to organize the plant. I don't want to give anything away.
Yeah.
Because this becomes part of the drama of the film. Along with the cultural differences, there's a lot of humor about that. But then it starts to change as the work gets harder, the profit motive really kicks in, and these union avoidance people really kind of create a divisive atmosphere. Well, you'll see what happens in
I
the
think
film.
the main thing to me is that this is the story of America, which is we can't even produce our own glass, that we need a Chinese billionaire to come and save our workers in Dayton, Ohio to produce glass on our cars. I mean, that's just utter insanity to me. And I wonder, how do these workers feel about that? I mean, when you're working for General Motors is an American company, and now we need, managers from wherever, from Guangzhou, China or something, to come and tell us how to produce glass?
In Ohio, there
yeah.
are 10,000 Buckeyes who work for Honda.
Actually,
Yeah.
15,000.
Right.
15,000.
Right, I mean, this is what
15,000.
every
So
Asian
it's-
automaker has done.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think when you have been hurting for jobs for years and years, and some of the former GM workers who used to make like $29 an hour, after the plant closed, they were making $8 or $9 an hour in some kind of warehouse distribution center with like a scanner gun, Kohl's or Payless shoes.
With
Yeah.
no benefits. Right.
So when Fuyao came to town, the starting wage was $12 an hour with benefits, and that was a big difference. And I think your like sense of patriotism or nationalism, whatever you want to call it, of like, I don't want to work for a Chinese company. We didn't feel a lot of that. We felt growing abrasions around the cultural differences, but not as like, go American.
Well, it's like a macro style question of like, how is it we've gotten to a point of an economy where we need the Chinese company to come in and
rescue
operate
an
the
American
plant here?
town, basically.
Well, look at
In Dayton, Ohio.
in Dayton, Ohio,
Yeah.
the heartland of the heartland. Well, look at it. Look at steel that was all along the Ohio River between Pennsylvania and Ohio. All gone. Went to Japan.
Yep.
Yeah.
And China.
Yep.
Some of those places bought back up actually by an Indian company.
That. And look at textile in South Carolina.
Right.
Used to be all American owned.
Yeah.
All gone. And guess who's buying them now? Guess there are 23 different Chinese companies in South Carolina
course, yeah.
that make cloth there. Well, but our capitalists left
Right.
for lower wage places.
Well, and-
We
and
are
this
now
is like-
becoming a lower wage company.
Yeah.
Country. Right.
For industrial
And
work.
You're
and
right.
This is
We
reverse
are.
globalization.
And is this the way to
Jobs coming back.
compete? I mean, can we ever compete with, Chinese workers who expect, as you said, 12-hour day, 6 days a week. Like, is that really the direction that we should be going in? And trying to undercut and underprice.
These workers are only making $12 an hour.
That's right.
They're not making $29 an hour.
Oh no, they're making less than half.
They're making less than half their wage.
Sure.
Well, it's something that we as a country are going to have to decide where we want to go. What kind of country do we want to live in? Do we want a country where millions of us, the majority of us, have really suppressed wages, and the small number of people are becoming multi-billionaires? That's the country, that's the world we currently live in.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's global. So is that what we want? I don't think we can offer an answer. We're not economists, but we're filmmakers, and we really saw, what we really saw, to answer your question, is that people were eager for the jobs. They were eager for it to work out. They understood it was a startup. We'll survive on $12. I'm sure it's going to get better.
It's now 14.
Yeah.
And it's now 14, but
it's not 29.
And a lot of things didn't turn out as well as they could have. I think it would have been good if the Chinese management and owners had understood the cultural and legal, the way we are here.
Yeah.
They did not always understand our laws. They should have had American folks who could help them understand that.
Yeah.
It could have gone better.
But you know,
But they were eager for the job.
You say you're not an economist. I would say that maybe we need some people who have talked to actual people about what the impact has been on their lives and told those stories, having a larger voice in our.
But you know, they've got cheaper goods in the grocery store, so they were told that they're better off.
We got more cheap stuff from Walmart, so there you go, guys. There's the trade-off.
Well, I can never believe when American working class people all shop at Walmarts. It's like, come on. But we followed this story for.
But what else can you do when your wages have been depressed? It's the only place you can afford, right? That's, you got no other choice.
It's hard. But we followed the story for 3 years. You know, we live there. We drive 25 minutes to get to the plant. We were there with 5 different cinematographers over a couple of years. So to your point of like, we need to hear more from people who don't fly into the Midwest to get a story and
with
stay
a political
for a week
agenda often.
with a political agenda.
Right.
And we went in without a sense of what is this story? Like, we didn't know. We went in there sort of, okay, this is happening in our community. This is going to be interesting.
Let's see what unfolds.
Like, as I said.
We very much encourage people to see the film.
Thank you.
Congrats to you guys.
Thank you.
Netflix, the Obamas. Little bit of a big deal there, so congrats on that. But thank you for sharing these stories. We really appreciate it.
Thanks.
And we'll have more Rising after this.